Welcome to the latest episode of FoodTech Stories. I'm your host, FoodTech marketing expert Megan Thomas. FoodTech Stories features the leaders pioneering new approaches to technology, collaboration, and storytelling in the food tech and ag tech space. Food and agriculture are changing, and fresh ideas and leadership are needed to sustainably feed the growing global population. Join us every other week as we talk to a founder, operator, or visionary in food and agriculture. My guest on today's podcast is Sue Marshall, and Sue is founder and CEO of NETZRO. Welcome to the podcast, Sue.
Great to be with you today.
Wonderful. What can you tell us about the work of NETZRO?
NETZRO, we're in the food upcycling space. We're a technology enabler, and we actually have proprietary equipment and technology, both hardware and software. I'm the one that would support, our company supports consumer brands that are doing these great new upcycled food products. We do that by getting the equipment in line, and we'll talk more about that because that's very important for safety and for making economical viability of the whole process of upcycling food.
And what brought you to upcycling?
I actually had a full career in real estate for 28 years. When my youngest was ready to graduate from high school, my children explained to me that I ought to go do something impactful. I decided to go back to school and pursue finishing my master's degree. Obviously, raising children, that becomes kind of hard over the years. I went back and I went in the venture side of the university and said, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I want to start another company. Be careful what you do going back to school. They said, cool, like you should finish here and we'll support you in a new venture. So I knew doing that, I would come out doing something. I didn't have food upcycling in particular in mind. That came a few semesters later. I had obviously, being up in Minnesota, a real closeness to farmers. I come from a farming family. Land is very important to me and crops and that type of thing. It's not a surprise if someone knows my upbringing that I would have geared towards agriculture and food.
What is the core problem that NETZRO is solving?
I didn't call it upcycling food at the time. What I was doing is looking at facilities that manufacture food. If you can think of whey protein, which is commercialized, and today we all have that in our food almost every day, that's a byproduct of making cheese. And so you'd go to a cheese plant and you'd go, okay, they make cheese. And then there's all this beautiful food that is usually wasted or undervalued. When I looked at it, it wasn't small amounts. It was tons of stuff a day. I just happened to go, well, what other things are being wasted or not utilized that this equipment that I invented could stabilize and do very well at stabilizing so that we could possibly eat it again. So that's really the venture that started in the university. And so I was really lucky because I had a lot of students. I'm a non-traditional student, i.e. old. And the younger students were like, yeah, that's really cool. Like, you should do this. You should make this food again. We got into it and they really helped explore the different types of byproducts coming out of these facilities in Minnesota. So that's really what started it.
Interesting. And what types of foods or food streams do you work with?
So initially, it was mixed dumpster waste. That's kind of fun because when you put some mixed dumpster lunch, for example, or breakfast, into a piece of equipment out the other side becomes a dried product. Mixed dumpster waste is interesting. Now, that's not really viable for our human consumption. What I learned is how I use infrared heat. So how that infrared heat, when it's applied on different types of food, what happens? And so there was a lot of nutritional analysis on various types of food, meat and fruit and other types of things would come out differently. That's really what kind of got my eye on a couple particular streams, one of which was eggshells. There are a lot of liquid egg production on my part of the country. In doing liquid egg, there's a lot of shells. And so we learned a lot about calcium. And then we learned a lot about eggshell membrane, which is that sticky on a hard-boiled egg type of thing. And that's collagen protein. In that endeavor, we started connecting a lot with the universities on the nutrient values of both of those things, and then how the infrared actually is able to do that really efficiently and really good from a safety perspective. But outside of eggshells, it became a lot of grains, brewing, distilling grains, any kind of juice pulp. Apples from apple juice, the things that we drink every day, it's easy for us to forget that there are these things that are left behind. So we've pretty much done the gamut on any kind of a beverage, and then other kinds of grains are easy for us. And we today currently sell those types of things as ingredients for other products.
When I get the chance to meet listeners of the podcast, they often mention the quality of the production as one of their favorite parts of the show. That praise is due to the team that edits the show, TJG Media. Their team works with the raw audio files of each interview to enhance the quality of the sound, minimize external noise, and cut out the natural pauses that occur in conversation to create each fast-paced episode. Plus, they create engaging short-form videos to promote each episode on social media. Visit tjgmediallc.com to find out more. So you have equipment that you sell to food processors or food producers. Are there specific crops or types of food that you're more likely to see? What's the major sector, or is it fairly diversified?
It depends on other factors. And this is what I've learned over 5 years is that it depends on what's going on locally, regionally, internationally, regulatory, what they currently do with something today, whether that's more challenging or less challenging, given all the factors I just mentioned. Ultimately, the value, the nutrient value of that stream, I'll follow the nutrient value first and protein. You and I met at a protein conference, right?
Yes, we did.
Protein. Protein is on everybody's mind. So I'll look at different streams and go, okay, if it's high in protein and good fibers, let's take a look at those first and do some testing.
That makes a lot of sense. And do your customers, your partners, do they tend to see this as a way to create revenue or reduce cost? Or are they looking at it as part of like their branding efforts or on a more organizational level, would you say?
All of the above, depending, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah, fair.
if somebody in the United States of America, if somebody says, oh my gosh, did you know that you have collagen protein in your membrane in an eggshell? You can easily go, wow, there might be money to be made, which is true. That might get an initial conversation on what is the revenue potential, correct? Also, somebody might be saying, I was never charged before to get rid of 10 tons of this stuff a day, and now they're charging me, and they see it as an expense that's growing rapidly. I see that a lot as well. Then there are always brands. We know that we're in the startup world that literally lead as a hero ingredient on sustainability. Those discussions from those types of companies might be first, but then always they go, okay, but it actually financially has to make sense. Fair enough.
Sure, but they're coming at it from that higher order need. Can you think of a customer or partner who does that particularly well, the holistic approach?
Not my customers particularly. I have some customers are all over the board. And the United States is a little different on that than outside of the US. So I'm working in Europe. I haven't sold any equipment in Europe yet, but they're ready for it because they have different reasons to be exploring circular food systems in more efficient ways. Look, some countries don't even have landfills. That choice is out. I would say you're going to see in Europe a lot more leaning on being real forward about sustainability, circular food systems than you are in the US. That doesn't say that we don't have huge opportunity in the US, and we do. Even though it might get frustrating on a daily basis that more people aren't like running over to buy equipment going forward, we have enough food in this country, and we all know that in the United States, to feed the entire world. Well, I'll also tell you we have enough food byproducts that typically go to waste to feed the entire world.
Yes.
There's so much opportunity, especially when you look at food science and the availability of new innovation going on, Impossible Burgers, all these types of things that are going on in our world. And how can upcycled food ingredients actually enable and support that? Oh my God, it's endless.
And upcycling has been a topic for some time. I've worked in natural foods and in sustainability for a couple decades, and it doesn't seem, at least from a public kind of mainstream standpoint, it doesn't seem to have really gained a lot of traction. What do you think the barriers are to that?
I want to give you some data today because I think this is really important. Being a technical provider and equipment and software, I got a hold of the upcycled food movement back in 2019. These were consumer brands. A lot of them have done really good work, and they wanted to educate consumers as a CPG brand would want to do. And so I said, you know what? I'm a technology provider, and someday I'm be supporting you. So I jumped on the bandwagon of the Upcycled Food Association. So I'm one of the founders. And the first thing we decided to do is say, what we really need is a certification on backpack. Consumers really look to certifications. It helps build trust. It's a way to tell people what you're doing through the story. We decided we were going to do that, but we also wanted transparency. So this wasn't just about a marketing effort to slap a little label on a package. We literally work with ReFed, NRDC, Harvard Law. We got to do that during COVID, by the way, when people were available. We did make the certification, and you can find that on back of pack today, which is beautiful. We sold that certification as an association to Where Food Comes From, which is a publicly held company, and they have now since expanded it internationally. The consumers have made that the fastest growing certification. We did all the work to create it, but the consumers are saying, just like they would on organic or fair trade, or that they want to have more product with the label. So Where Food Comes From is doing an excellent job, but you can go online and find out. There's over 100 companies with over 500 products today certified, and that was at the end of 2025. They've diverted 1.2 million tons of food waste to date. No, that's actually in 2024 alone. Obviously, the upcycled certification has grown 55% since 2022. But major brands, and we Del Monte, Hershey, they're all involved to your point. And you've been involved, they've been involved. And what they love about the certification, it finally puts a stamp on their work. The expansion becomes not only just the number of consumer products for human consumption, it also is into pet food, it's into health and beauty, which is super exciting. You'll be able to buy health and beauty products with upcycled ingredients. Those ingredients are probably in some of those products today. It's just giving those brands the ability to communicate what they're doing in their stories. So that's what's really exciting about it.
My 2 cents is there maybe is a PR opportunity to make people more aware that this is a growing endeavor. I didn't have those statistics. Could be that I'm not reading the right outlets, but I think that that's good to know.
The next level of growth, from my perspective of being inside facilities that manufacture juice, beverage, and these other items, is it has to be something that's a benefit to them. That can be, like I said, reducing the cost of having to divert that from the landfill to now maybe commercial composting or incinerating. All of those techniques for diversion are expensive. It's no longer I can just put them in my waste bin. That's not reasonable. We know that even in the US, that's not going to continue to be an option. So it's going to get more expensive. And then ultimately, if they can get equipment and they can upcycle themselves more simply, they don't want to be in the ingredient business. They make beer. It has to be something that, as a framework, that's what NETZRO works on, is to provide them an easy way to do it. And they will need help getting the ingredient to market. They will need help with all of us with the story and helping them publish how they're doing what they're doing to the consumer.
And Net Zero helps them to do that?
Yes, exactly. So we look at it more like knowledge, equipment, of course, and then connections to those final end use markets, because that is really difficult to do, as we know in the food business.
Okay, so you called out the barrier specifically around cost, around reducing complexity, and then around creating and sustaining those connections throughout the supply chain. Are there any other barriers that get in the way, or are those the big three?
You mentioned US and like, why isn't it more prevalent? When I go to Europe, it's a lot different because a juice plant could have a ton of apple pumice a day. Ours could have 10 tons. In the US, we look at it that way. We are going to make food for everyone. So, hence, the manufacturing is big. That's what the stumbling block is, because there isn't a market for 10 tons of apple pumice a day for human consumption. A facility, a cidery, apple juice manufacturer will say, well, Sue, you're going to take 10 tons a day, right? I have to be ready for that offtake. I don't know where else to put the other 8 tons. There has to be a whole framework and connections to everything. Because guess what? That apple pumice, not all of it's going to go to human consumption today. That's just not real. So where else will it go? Then we get involved with recyclers who are now looking at, okay, we used to take it to the landfill. Now we're taking it to commercial composting. Now we want to look at upcycling for human consumption. The interest has to come from those providers of that service as well, which is what I'm excited about because I'm seeing a lot of that.
From your work, what do you know about what consumers know or don't know about upcycled ingredients?
Some of it is there are certain ingredients that are easy. The grains coming out of a brewery or distillery. The bakery industry has used spent grains, is what they're called, for decades. That's not when you go to a bakery and talk to somebody who's doing a new product that's a bakery product, that's not a hard conversation to have. They've heard of it. They've probably played with it. Their struggle is if they come up with a new pretzel they want to commercialize that's national, they would need a certain consistency on a regular basis at a certain price. That's my work. It's watching the market on the ingredients that are pretty common and to make sure consistency would be available. And then which ones are coming up that are of interest. And then I go to those manufacturers and I try to chicken and the egg, which is first, right? Totally true. So that's kind of my job is, okay, there's a little demand. Okay, where's the manufacturer? It's this play of timing.
And consistent, reliable supply is everything in food production. The example of spent grains from brewing or distilling is interesting. And then, of course, bread and other grain-based products is those are very familiar foods to people. So I think it's very intuitive to understand grain and that connection. And I think that's a good example because it's one that most people could relate to. It normalizes something that maybe they haven't thought about. Oh, okay, that's something I understand. Yeah.
From there, we can go over to apple pieces. And you see some of the Uglies brand. Now they have different types of fruits, all fruit pieces and vegetable pieces. That's an easy bridge as well once you get the grain. And then the next is how do you get more of that in more product?
How do you leverage relationships or partnerships to further the work of net zero?
That's the chapter we are on with Net Zero right now. Invented the equipment, we proved it out, we looked at efficiency. I had really great mentors. I'm in Minnesota. You can imagine who those food companies are that would say, cute, good, I see your product. They even work with it, right? And then they come back and say, okay, the average purchase order would be 200,000 pounds. We would like to pay less than 30 cents a pound. Wow. Okay. That took me 5 years to get to, right? Which is all real because you have to get that efficiency and the safety around that so that someone like that could make those purchases. Now I've done that. So now I'm looking at who are the partners to actually help me with all that because Net Zero cannot do that alone. That's exciting because it goes to supply chain and I love supply chain. Food really is a lot of opportunity in looking in supply chain efficiency, innovation. There's so many opportunities when you look at the supply chain. Some of these big food companies are very interested in supply chain. The next few years will really be about collaboration and partnership within the supply chain.
And what role do you see technology playing? Are there good resources out there that capture data around potential upcycled ingredients?
There is not yet, but the desire. In fact, I'm working on a project right now. There's a new grain called Kernza. Kernza, developed out of the University of Minnesota. It's a perennial grain. It was built as a regenerative agriculture tool. The roots go down 15 feet, and it's literally a soil regenerator, right? So it's down there and it's doing its thing to make that ecosystem under there all healthy. And then the farmer plants it as a perennial for rotating crops and stuff like that. Well, we've proven that out. It's taken several decades to do that, and it ended up tasting good. That's not what it was created for, but it tastes good. So today you're seeing Kernza in bakery product. Patagonia came out and sponsored Kernza to be in brewing and distilling. So you're seeing it. Enter Net Zero. I will upcycle Kernza, and I've made a commitment. I was the first one to do it at a distillery, the first whiskey that was made with it. I do the brewery. I have a brewery here that's 100% Kernza in all their beers. Their theory on it is it's sustainable grain. It's for regenerative farmers. You have a different audience there. And the consumers who eat Kernza or drink Kernza beer want to know about farming. It's a certain audience. Supply chain, to me, is so impactful. You're using a grain that was literally created for farmers to do better practices. It tastes good.
It's got to taste good.
It is higher protein content grain, so more nutritious right out of the gate. And then you have brewing and distilling saying, wow, it's great. How can I take the upcycling piece, close the loop on a grain that is from day one really impactful? And I've been speaking on that type of circular chain for certain things that do more than just upcycle. They actually create a whole much better agricultural system. It's not about upcycling everything for human consumption. That's not real. We are going to choose the ones that really can show and make a difference for everybody in the supply chain.
That's a great example. The Kearns example is a great one. We love novelty, right? We love new things, new options, new choices. What's the most surprising thing that you've learned so far?
The lack of funding that is available in food and agriculture. I came from a different world. Real estate, you could always get funding. It's an asset, it's collateralized, numbers make sense. That was hard for me to swallow. And then also emails and other types of group of people that are in food trying to start a food business. There's another layer of difficulty there. It's not a lack of innovation in food. I will tell you, every day I wake up and I get involved in new technologies and data. You mentioned data, the things that are going on with data that are all fascinating. It's just the funding and the lack of funding to do these things, to launch them right and to scale is what's slowing us down. I don't know how to fix it. I'm not a venture capitalist. I'm an investor in my own way, clearly, but I don't know what the food system can do to attract that funding. And then now, of course, funding has been pulled on the academia side, and that's where I've raised a lot of money. Most of my startup funds were from academia or state grants. That got me where I am today. I'm thankful. That's not going to get the next person who's going to innovate. So we have to relook at how funding occurs in food, I think.
I think that's right. And I know traditional venture is looking for that 10x and they're looking for fast, and things you grow in the ground don't go fast. You need so much field data and other processing data, right, to make these things happen. It takes time. It's a great example that you bring forward. And it would follow that if there are economic markets out there, that there's someone who could fund those because they see value there. So hopefully that is in the future, in the cards.
Yeah, and we just have to keep it up, right? And look at new
Yeah.
funding models that incorporate this is what I'm working on. So if I can say, "Hey, I need these stakeholders in this project," it's not one person writing the check, it's all of them writing their portion of the check. There's carbon measurement, and they all wanna get credit for their part of that supply chain. Maybe the investments just split up more frequently. That's how I've been approaching it with my projects is like, "Okay, you're gonna do this part, you're gonna do this part, I'm gonna do this part, so here's what we each need." And then I'll help promote that and go help get that. But then everybody knows going into what's their responsibility for the funding.
Another example of collaboration. What's next for upcycling and more broadly, the idea of circularity in our food system?
I'm really excited on an academic perspective, even though we just talked about the downside right now. The bright side is that you're seeing the movement be international. University of Minnesota, University of North Carolina's university as well. I spent time there too. Very good at food and international connections with food. And then University of California, Davis. So UC Davis. So there's some real in the United States that are connected to really great academic in Amsterdam, Denmark, UK, a lot of things going on. I see a real desire to collaborate. And this is fantastic. They're all interested in what we're doing here. I'm interested in them because the volume and the scales that they're dealing with are smaller, which makes it realistic for me. I love projects over there because I know I can handle those. Those are realistic size wise. If we take a look at how we can do our work and help the academic, and then academic can help us as food entrepreneurs, more and different than it has been in the past. I'm actually very optimistic about it. The University of California, Davis is opening the Resnick Center, and the Resnick Center for Upcycling is key to all of this because that 40,000 square foot new facility, state of the art, is all around byproducts, valorization, and upcycling. That it bring in international visitors from around the world. That is where the work, hands-on work. This is different than anything else, which is not just studies. This is turning on equipment. Equipment like NETZRO's, turn the baby on. That is something we need to just all grab a hold of now in a time where it's really hard to see the positives in food. I think the next 5 years, I'm an eternal optimist. I get it, but I really do feel a movement here that is different and can accelerate it all, really.
Maybe it's time has come. As a potential correction, so you said the University of North Carolina. Did you mean NC State?
NC State, yes, that's what I mean.
Okay.
I've had Bueller operates out of that. I've had a lot of mentoring from Bueller as a commercial equipment company. Raleigh Brewing, she supports me. Christy Neisted, she's actually has an equipment company. And then, of course, Protein Forward, a lot happening with proteins. I feel certain states really are totally putting energy and focus on food. That is where those of us that are in food need to really plant some roots. North Carolina to me is more about protein. I go there and do that. University of Minnesota, grain work, Kernza, circular, and then University of California, Davis on byproducts. They have a lot of food byproducts. Let's just admit that. And then they've got the vineyard industry and they've got some real big pulls there. University of Kentucky, also my friends there, and that's distillation, right? So they have distilleries. We look at each state as to what do they shine in and then go upcycling to where they're at.
Wonderful. So, where can people go to find out more information about the work that you're doing at NETZRO?
Yeah, so they can always follow NETZRO, and it's NETZRO not ZERO. That's a different company. NETZRO.US. And then also follow us on LinkedIn. We're on all socials. I have a great YouTube channel if somebody wants to take a look at equipment itself and how it operates. If they love big toys, they can find that information there.
Wonderful. Well, I enjoyed our conversation, Sue. Thank you very much.
I look forward to working in the future on proteins. Let's go.
Thanks for joining us today on the latest episode of Food Tech Stories. Be sure and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform and keep an eye out for our bi-weekly episodes. I'm your host, Megan Thomas, founder of Ladris 17. Food Tech Stories is edited by TJG Media.